statistically significant or important as an artist of Madonna. Now, I said in that conversation, I feel like Madonna felt more important in the time, but I was also...
My knee hurts.
Yeah, oh my goodness.
I'm willing to bet if you ask somebody who's in that age range right now if Taylor Swift is important, they're going to be like, duh, these people are filling out NFL stadiums because she's not important. I mean, right? Like, that's how people are going to see it. I also said I feel like Madonna had to push the envelope quite a bit, but the envelope's been pushed off the table now. It's stuck to the bottom of shoes these days. Have you seen TikTok? There's no need to push the envelope anymore, so I'm not sure we need Taylor Swift to be the type of artist. She's the end result, Taylor, of the work done by artists like Madonna and those who came before her. That's kind of what happened.
Just rehashing.
Right? So I feel like Courtney's just kind of out there being Courtney, right? Now, she was asked the question. She was doing an interview with the outlet. Lucky enough to give you the first. 9 a.m. is when I'll do that. Also, we got a couple of and Slate and Guardian will be going off on their articles on that. But he went a little too far after telling her it was, oh, buddy, they finna drag you, man. Like, that was like, it was not good. It comes off as really, really awkward. She handles it really, really well. I got to give her credit. A lot of athletes these days would stop in that moment, kind of make it the thing. No, I'm not letting this go anywhere. We saw that one kid who was in the Final Four with South Carolina, I think it was, NC State, rather. And he was on with, I think it was Rich Eisen, and Rich said something, he's like, sir, and they like stopped him in the middle of it to like show he's got the balls to be like, I'm not going to let you say this. It was an average question. I don't know what all the dust up was there. But Caitlyn didn't necessarily, she had a moment here, but she could have like made this a thing. And she realized, no, all eyes are on me. Let's not necessarily make this the biggest deal. The media is going to do it anyway. If I say something about this, it's only going to breathe more life into it. I also read another think piece about her yesterday, and it said she might have the toughest job in all of sports. Now, people will laugh at that. They will eye roll that. But it could be true. Who else do we look at to save the sport? But like currently, who are we looking at to save a sport? And not even save it, legitimize it. Nobody. We look at male athletes like it's tough enough if you got to go in and fix a team. If you got to fix a culture of one particular team, it's like, man, he's a hard road. Homie's in for it. He's got to go to Cleveland. And then we fawn over the fact that they're going to go into a tough situation. This woman, people are looking at her to legitimize an entire sport, not a franchise, a sport. That's tough. That's pressure. There's going to be every shot this woman takes will be overanalyzed. Every time she loses, see, she wasn't any good. Try to tell you, this is why they're only paid $80,000. Like, everything about this season will go up and down with her. I don't know if it's the toughest job in sports. I know it's pretty tough. My guess is she's not load management. No way. She's going to have to go out there and this league, sink or swim. It's all on you. So your governor now, Mike DeWine, is interested in changing the seatbelt law here in Ohio, and I don't love it. They want to make this a primary offense in order to be able to pull you over. No seatbelt, we're going to pull you over. They want the no seatbelt thing, Mike DeWine does, to be a big enough reason for the cops just to pull you over on that alone. I think we all know how that's going to go. I think we all know the think piece articles that will be written 18 months after we do it. And this is just getting yourself further into some messy scenarios. Also, there is a freedom argument to this somewhere. There is. I don't know how legitimate it is of one when you can die without wearing a seatbelt, although plenty of people have died while wearing one. And so it's going to be a sticky situation. I can't even believe this is what he's fighting about, but we'll get there coming up at 8 o'clock. We'll take a look at that. We are going to have to talk about the NBA a little bit at 7 o'clock because, well, the league imposed a lifetime ban on a player you've never heard of, Jontay Porter. Jontay Porter has been caught, not accused. He's pretty much been caught gambling on games, gambling on himself. Look, right, I think this guy's up to something. No, and you guys had thoughts on it. It's a fine line between loneliness and confidence. And this comes up in one area of life.
Mess on air. Check out the show's Facebook page at Stansberry Show. Rock 106.9.
Guardians fall yesterday to the Red Sox. That game 2-0. They'll play again this afternoon, 1:35. Guardians now 12-6 on the year. See if they can pull out that game today, 1:35. So I saw a meme the other day, and I posted it. And I did not expect to get as much reaction to it as I have. I'm not upset about it or anything. I'm actually happy about it. And people feel as if this is an example of one of the things I say all the time, that life is perspective. How do you want to see it? And I'm not so sure this is one of those. Here's the meme. A woman posted, "Eating alone in a public restaurant is another whole new level of loneliness." And then a man has responded to her and says, no, eating alone in a public restaurant is another whole new level of confidence. And I had said on my post of it, as a person who does this often, and I do, it can be both. It can be. It's definitely sometimes confidence. What makes me say that is how many people in my life who I have known who have said to me things like, "Oh, I could never do that." Now, I think this could be one of those things COVID kind of changed for people, because we became more insular, we became more dependent on being on our own and those types of things, eating alone, working alone. Thing became really popular after that, and I was like, wait, that's my thing. You guys are supposed to like one another. No, this is gonna be madness. Like one another, right? But everybody became like, nah, I hate everybody else but me. And that whole situation kind of slammed the gas pedal down on that. But I've known plenty of people in my life who have said, "Oh God, I could never do that," or "I wouldn't want to do that." And as a person who's done it, let me tell you, you absolutely face judgment over it. Every time? Every other patron? No, probably not. Often enough. But as a person who has eaten in a restaurant alone, often, as early as, or recently, I should say, as yesterday, I did. It can also be loneliness. There have been a million times I have been in a restaurant, eating alone, looking around at everybody else, friends and family, everybody together, on a date. Oh my God, are they falling in love? And you think to yourself, God, what is going on with me? As a matter of fact, I'll tell you, this happened to me when I moved home from Vegas. I was in between jobs, and I found myself in a food court at Great Northern Mall. And I even posted it. I'm alone in a food court, eating warmed over Chinese food. And officially, this is the moment where I have to ask myself, where did it all go wrong? And it was kind of one of those moments where it's like, what happened to my life? So it can absolutely be both. I do think it takes some confidence to do things on your own. A lot of people are afraid to do that. Afraid of the judgment. Now, again, I'm not going to harp on it, but we don't care what anybody thinks? Yes, we do. I'll tell you, it takes confidence to go into a restaurant and eat alone on a holiday. You should see the way people look at you like that. They look at you like the dog nobody wants to adopt. Oh, sorry, buddy, you're a little mangy. I don't think so. I mean, somebody should adopt you, but it's not going to be us. It's not. No, it's not going to be us. I want a new dog for my kids, right? It's kind of, they give you that kind of look. I have been stared at in restaurants. This was not recent, but enough while eating alone. And people kind of give you that look like, oh. Where once upon a time I turned at an older couple and I said, "My wife died. What do you want from me?" And like the look on their face was like, oh, okay, maybe we shouldn't be looking at this man with the pity in our eyes. I said yesterday, and this is true, I was eating alone. I was at Grinders on North Main, a restaurant I feel like a little bit of a, I guess, sort of a chain here, right? I feel like they're underrated. I feel like they're wildly underrated. It kind of has that reputation that it's like the little old lady restaurant. And I got to admit, it was my mother's favorite place I took her to eat here. Like it was. My mom still to this day on the phone, she's like, what's the name of that sandwich place, Daniel? I like that place. Like my mom loved Grinders, right? But Jennifer and I had lunch there about a week ago. And since then, I've been craving the sandwich again. And so I got out of here yesterday, and she was unable to have lunch. And I was like, all right, I'll just go have lunch by myself. No big deal. Kind of like staring at me. Poor son of a bitch. Now, I kind of posted that, too. I said, I can confirm this just today as I'm eating alone and somebody's staring at me. And a guy said to me, he goes, well, dude, isn't that about the fact that people may recognize you? And I was like, well, yeah, you never know who the listener is. I can't tell you how many times somebody my mother's age walks up to me and tells me I'm their guilty pleasure. So, like, I guess you could say, maybe, I don't think that's what it was. Having done this long enough, you kind of know the look on the face of the person who's like, oh my God, right? Like, there's, you kind of know the look of that person. They're normally also not very they're not going to sit down at the table and start talking to you or anything. But hey, man, I listen every day. I like that. You know what I mean? So I don't think that's what that was. Denver has written in about this and says, you know, I was terrified once to go to the movies by myself. But then I did it. And let me tell you, it was very relaxing. Yeah, again, people think this is weird. I'll go to the movies by myself a lot. I want to see more things to talk about on the program than she wants to see. And so I'll go sometimes after work and just knock the movie out. Right? And I go alone. And people think that's weird. I actually think it's, I mean, if either one of these actions is weird, it's the eating alone in a restaurant. The movies, you're not supposed to be talking to somebody else. You're not supposed to be communicating, right? You're supposed to be shutting up, watching what's on that screen, walking out and tweeting about how awful it was and how it was better when it was just the 80s movie you watched as a kid and they ruined it. The woke mind virus ruined it, right? That's what you do at the movies. That's what we do now, right? So, like, you're not supposed to be talking to anybody. So I think that's probably the more appropriate if we're going to reach for some words there. But this can absolutely be both. And I will say, though, that even if you're lonely, as a matter of fact, I bet it would actually take more confidence to go eat alone if you're feeling lonely.
Like Awakening with an easy pay Golden. The Stansberry Show on Rock 1069.
Welcome back to the program where I'll rock the bank with you at 9 a.m. I got that $1,000 keyword, the first of the day, and we'll pass that out at 9. We had been talking about the difference between confidence and loneliness while eating in a restaurant. A woman had posted that it's a whole new level of loneliness. And a man responded and said, no, it's a whole new level of confidence. And it can be both. I have eaten alone plenty of times in my life. By choice. By choice. I go out of my way to be alone more often than I have to be. I make decisions on that. I don't have a problem being alone. We don't got to go all the way down the rabbit hole, but it does go back to my childhood. My parents had their hands full with my brother who was 7 years older and an absolute nightmare of a kid. He was dealing with that whole "you're not my real dad" thing and he was just a problematic kid. And so my parents were all hands on deck with David, constantly. And I was kind of left to my own devices. That's where the sense of humor kind of came from. Hey, pay attention, I'm over here, hey, pay attention, mate. Like, that's kind of where all that comes from. And so I just kind of used to being on my own a little bit from an early age. And I got a little too comfortable with it. You add in a few other incidents in the childhood, it's like, other people, they're the worst, right? And so, like, then that wall kind of goes up. I also communicate for a living. I talk all morning. I talk all day. Multiple radio stations. I'm blessed. I'm lucky, yes. But it makes you not really want to talk to people a whole lot. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes it's like sitting at lunch. It's like, okay, enough. I don't want to say, I'll listen to you. I don't want to say anything else. It's kind of one of those situations. It's why I don't call people on the phone a lot. It's why I don't answer my phone a lot. It's like, I know this is going to sound crazy to you because people think I just love it, but it gets to the point where I can't hear my voice anymore. I'm tired of it. I know what you're thinking. Dude, you think you hate it. Like, we hate it. All right, fine, fair enough. Thomas says, back when I was single, I didn't mind doing things alone, but eating in a restaurant was one thing I could not do, and I don't understand how people can. Again, I think that's where the confidence angle would come into it. Now, I'm guessing Thomas would not identify himself as not being confident. But that's where people are going to say, it's like, nah, man, like, I'm able to do that. Eric has written in and says, man, I'm approaching 30. And, he's like, I can confirm that eating alone is always weird and it's awkward. And I asked him, because I do this a lot, and Eric and I, there's an age difference there, almost 20 years for crying out. And I said, are there places you will not go alone? He says, definitely a higher end place I won't go solo. Bars and some mom and pop chains are okay though. Places like steakhouses, Stansbury, even feel a little weird being solo. Yeah, the closer you are to a cloth napkin, if you're in there alone, the worse you're going to feel about it. There are restaurants here that are definitely cloth napkins. I'm thinking about maybe Bender's downtown. Just popped in my mind because I used to live right down the street. There were times where I wanted to go in there and eat. She was unable, we weren't spending the night together or whatever it was. I was kind of on my own and I thought to myself, I'm not doing it. It feels weird to do it there. I think this is why Uber Eats and why that became as popular as it did. Is first, I think the pandemic definitely had something to do with that. But beyond that, it's like, you don't mind eating at home alone. It's when you're doing it in front of other people is when you feel weird about it. Jeff tells me there's a saying about eating alone. I eat alone not because I'm lonely, but because of what I bring to the table. Jeff from Youngstown. Yeah, that's, again, man, that can be true of somebody. I think sometimes people create sayings to make themselves feel better about what they're doing. I'll give you an example of what I mean. I had a buddy who used to tell me he sleeps with prostitutes. Right. Because you have so many beautiful women after you, you have to pay pretty women to run away from you. Like, come on. Like, you're paying for the sex. You're paying for the sex, right? That can be true of somebody. I don't know if it's always true. Like, people ask me, isn't this one of those, what you're always talking about, perspective? How do you want to see it? Well, not really. Because you can go into a restaurant and be confident enough to eat alone. I've done it plenty of times. Did it just yesterday, as a matter of fact. We'll probably do it tonight. But you can also be in a restaurant, be alone, and be lonely. For sure. Because you're not choosing to eat, really. It's a necessity. We have to do it. So at some point, you're going to go and get yourself a meal. I will say it's less awkward at lunch than it is at dinner. At dinner, people really do just look at you like, oh, you don't have anybody to have dinner with? What'd you screw up? And it's like, you just want to look around the restaurant and be like, you hate her! You are 90 days away from a divorce. Will you quit looking at me like I got the issue going on? Right, like there's a little defensive thing that can happen there. Again, remember, because we're a society full of people that don't care what anybody else thinks. If you're asking the question, how do people do this alone? It's solely because you are worried about what people, and that may not be the first thought you have at the front of your brain, but it's in there somewhere, and that's what's leading to that kind of opinion, I would assume. I guess I am making an assumption there. A lot of people are bringing up the scenario. It's like, what if you're in town from somewhere else? You're working, from somewhere else. You're in town on work alone. It's like, that's fair. That probably happens a lot. Becky says, I've never noticed if people stare or not. I'm too busy playing on my phone. I bet that's pretty common today, of people who are eating together or eating alone. I have tried to get better about not being on my phone as much when I'm in one of those places, Becky. I did, like most people yesterday, I was like, here's a picture of my food. And I talked about how I posted it because I was like, dude, Grinders is underrated. And I maintain, I feel like they're underrated. I've never had a bad meal there. Service is normally pretty quick, normally pretty nice. You can normally get in and out of there, like I said, pretty fast. And the food's really good. I had the Pedro's pick yesterday, 2 thumbs up, loved it. Yeah, absolutely. As a matter of fact, that's what I had last week for lunch when I was with Jennifer. And I had been wanting it since that day. They're underrated, I feel like, right? So I was in there. I'm not sure this is the same thing as what I'm talking about with perspective, because it can be both. I also try not to use my phone. A lot of people are talking about, bring your phone, bring your tablet, bring this. The more I'm using something like that, the more lonely it makes me feel. like, all right, remember it was about, I think it was like 2 weeks ago where this like screaming at her or whatever, and that business had a similar name to like a mom and pop diner here. And everybody was blaming the diner. And I was like, you guys didn't even take the time to figure out which one of these restaurants you're yelling at. This poor woman in a restaurant's going to be brutalized from my house either. And so I was talking about that day, and I was like, let me get out of here. If I can get out of here early enough, I'll go have lunch there. Didn't make it. So the next day was Saturday. I woke up and had breakfast there. And that was one of those moments where I was like, I'm eating alone. I'm not getting together with her until later this afternoon. So I'm going to have breakfast alone. So I went. And I did. I took a picture of it. I posted. I said, hey, I stopped in here because I want to make sure, this place gets the business that they deserve and not get, brutalized over something that wasn't their fault. And then after that, I just kind of slid the phone in my pocket. And I was like, just have the rest of the meal without your phone. I've moved into leaving my phone in my car when I go into restaurants alone. I'm trying to do a little bit more of that. I don't like the fact, now this is a separate subject, I don't like the fact that I feel like this is how I'm going to get through this moment. Eating should not feel like something I have to get through, or that, oh my God, how am I going to do this on my own? Like I would prefer to be in a restaurant with somebody. I would prefer she be with me every time I go to a restaurant to eat. It's just not the reality. Our schedules don't line up. There's a lot going on. You guys are in relationships. You know how it goes. It's just not the way that's going to be every time. And so I understand using, and I'm not on you. I'm not telling you, oh, what are you doing with the tablet? What are you, a loser? Like, that's not what I'm saying. It makes me feel lonelier that I have to rely on something to get me through this thing versus just being able, because that's what I would say is where the confidence comes in. If you can eat there alone without needing that crutch, that would be confidence. I would say that I would feel more lonely if I have to rely on the tablet, the phone, or what have you to get me through this moment. Also, how long are meals if you're eating alone? The average run time of a dinner is only extended through the conversation you're having with the other people or, person, right? If you go out with a couple of other couples, it's like now we're telling stories about 10 years ago and all this. And, meanwhile, the restaurant's waiting for you to get the hell out of there. That's why that's long. If you go in and eat alone, you're in and out. You're not sitting around wasting people's time. You're not sitting around there doing that. Maybe one extra cup of coffee. All right, now we got to get in the car and go. I think it can be confidence. I think a lot of people think they're confident. In reality, it's like, no, you're lonely and there's no other option for you now. And so you're doing that. A lot of people have an issue with going to the movies alone. I don't understand it. The restaurant, I think, would be harder or worse. I'm supposed to be conversing with people over a meal, right? That's kind of how that goes. Break bread and, that whole thing. Where the movies, you're supposed to be quiet. There's no better place to go alone for some entertainment if you're looking for something to do than a movie theater. Again, you're not supposed to say a word in there.
Kind of funny you can listen to him on your smart speaker.
At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought.
The Stansberry Show.
Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it.
On Rock 1069.
8 a.m. this morning, Governor Mike DeWine wants to make some serious changes to the seatbelt law here in Ohio, so we'll take a look at that. What you and I had been talking about is the difference between confidence and loneliness. There was a meme going around, and I had posted this too, talking about how if you eat alone in a restaurant, you're lonely, and the guy responded and said, no, if you do that, you're confident, and it can be both. I have experienced both of those things while eating alone. I eat alone a lot. A lot of times I choose to eat alone. As a matter of fact, I was asked yesterday by people here in the building, want to go have lunch? Nah, I'm good. I think I already had a protein shake. Walked out of the parking lot, got in my car, went to lunch. I choose to be alone a lot. It is my default position. There's comfort in that for me. But that will lead to some loneliness over time. It has. This came in off the text line on this, though. 330-450-7625. Stansberry, I'm single and alone. I dine alone a lot. It's not lonely or confident. That's not my experience. It's nothing more than wanting to have a nice meal without cooking. The problem is making reservations. I have to reserve a table for two because a reservation for one isn't an option. I think people make more out of things than what really exists. Well, that can be true for you, yes. Denial is part of life, and I'm not saying you're in denial, but plenty of people are out there who are lonely and in denial about the fact that they are. You know how I know? Some people will use that line from Heat. Am I lonely? I'm alone. I'm not lonely. I had said that for years. And there were times where I was telling the truth, and I was alone, and I wasn't lonely. And there were plenty of times where I was like, nah, secretly, dude, I kind of wish I had somebody. I kind of wish I had something going on. I'm not saying that's your situation, but I'm not sure everybody else is making something out to be bigger than it is. I think your experience is your experience, and that's great. I honestly, I hope that you're not lonely. Lonely is a terrible feeling. As we saw that, again, coming out of the pandemic, more and more people reported, yeah, man, I got to tell you, I don't feel great. Like, my mental health isn't great. I'm alone. I don't know if I like that, right? So, like, I'm not sure that's everybody's experience. This came in from a bunch of you. Said, I can't believe you haven't even gotten to the point yet that some parents just want to go out and eat alone because, dude, after you've been married and you've had kids for 20 years and all that stuff, every dinner, every meal you've ever had is loud and food flying around and all this stuff. He's like, that sometimes, man, it's kind of nice. Quiet, a little zen, a little of that kind of moment there. I could understand that. I don't have that as often as you have had. I don't cohabitate with my partner who has children. And so I'm still very much in the, it kind of warms my heart thing. So much so that when I'm out eating alone and they're not with me, if I see that situation in a restaurant, I now have way more patience with other people's children.
You will not come?
Now when a kid's kind of acting out because it's not my situation, I actually kind of think it's kind of cute sometimes. And it makes me miss her son.
Sweetheart, I
I'll
told
be
you
like,
don't
oh,
put it
I miss
here
little dude.
because it's
Oh,